not gonna lie, that Google ad still has me crying emoji.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, we are recapping all 10 games on Monday, a massive day across the league, and then previewing a 4-game Wednesday. Mikal Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. And a quick shout out to Mikal Bolton because he posted something today about, he was awake, but his coffee, he hadn't opened his eyes yet, and a listener to this podcast, and I'm going to find out who it is exactly because I need to do better of that when people tell me things and I don't then credit them. It was David Callahan. He replied back to Mikal Bolton saying, let's get to it, tagged me in it. Mikal Bolton replied to that with a meme of himself from the Jack Sparrow video saying, now back to the good part. And that is absolutely amazing. My lifelong goal is to have Mikal Bolton come on this podcast live and have him say the let's get to it live. That is a lifelong ambition. But shout out to you, Mick, for getting at least one step there and replying to a tweet that someone listening to this podcast put out there. So thank you to you, Mr. Bolton, again. Let's talk about the games now. Across Monday, there was a lot happening across the league. The first game we look at, the Dallas Mavericks and the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers lose 112-103. The Mavericks without Doncic on the road. A huge victory because Porzingis, he's still really good. And we saw this earlier in the season when Doncic went down. Porzingis stepped up and went big. He had 38 and 12 with 6 triples on 50% shooting and a perfect 12 of 12 from the line. He rightfully has taken a step back for Doncic. He wasn't quite there the first game that Doncic was out here. His own knee issues, but he is rolling. And interestingly, the Mavs have been really, really against using Kleber and Porzingis together. They started both of them together, 36 for Porzingis and then 35 for Kleber. Now, Kleber didn't do much, 5 and 8, but if they're going to continue to do that with Dwight Powell out, then Kleber does become a 12-team league option again. He wasn't good here, 5 and 8, and maybe they don't continue that, but it is at least worth monitoring. Finney-Smith had another good game, 15 and 11. I think some of his recent performances have been improved because Doncic has been out. He's been grabbing more boards, filling that Doncic rebounding role, and when Luka comes back, it will drop Finney-Smith's production off. For now, he can be a 12-team streamer, while Timmy Hardaway had one of his better games again. No Doncic, no Seth Curry, and no JJ Barea in this one. Did help him. He had 25 points with 4 threes, while Delon had 8, 5, and 4. Just doesn't look like it's going to happen for Delon. And it also appears that Rick Carlisle does not like Willie Cauley-Stein. 6 minutes, 2 rebounds, 0 points. Not a 12-team league guy. Probably not a 14-team league guy at this point. Well, the burner Jalen Brunson had 9, 4, and 3 in 31 minutes. And he at least does have some 12-team league staying power. Well, Doncic is out, of course. For the Pacers, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, they actually both had good games together. 26, 12, and 9 from Sabonis, 11 and 5 with 2 steals and 3 blocks for Turner. That is what we want to see, but more importantly, the 34 minutes from Turner, because those games where he plays with Sabonis, we normally see 25, 26 minutes, so this is obviously a big improvement in that regard. Victor Oladipo, the shooting continues to be absolutely arse. 9 points in 23 minutes on 4 of 17 shooting. We talk about it, or I talk about it, and you listen to me talk about it, probably sometimes painfully, that coming back from significant leg injuries, players don't have the lift and their field goal percentage drops off a lot. That is what's rough with Oladipo. Not only did you have to deal with the first 3 months or 4 months of him not playing, now he's playing low minutes, back-to-back sitting out, and he's shit. Like, that is not worth that high investment in a draft pick. And it is always, again, when someone's out for so long at the beginning of the season, it's really hard for me to get behind drafting them just because when they come back, you can't keep them on IR because then you can make no moves for 3 or 4 weeks. And that's exactly where he needs to be. He's a great bench candidate if you're in a weekly league or in a roto league, but it is rough at the moment. Brogdon had 14, 6, and 3. Aaron Holiday had a spot start for Tony Warren. He'd been out of the rotation, so don't look too highly into this from Holiday. I'm sure the Pacers won't because he had 7 points in those 24 minutes, while Lamb had 11 and 5 with a 111, which is entirely adequate. And that's really not what you want at the back end of your roster, take some flyers on guys, especially with the trade deadline around. But I must stress this to you, guys, with the trade deadline a couple of days away, save your waiver moves. Don't burn them on nonsense here. maybe you wanted to add Dorian Finney-Smith. Don't add him waiting for the trade deadline. Don't add, even Brunson. I wouldn't be wasting a waiver acquisition on him at this point. Maxi Kleber, I probably wouldn't want to do that there. I'd want to see what happens at the trade deadline. I'd save at least 3 moves for the deadline day, maybe all of your moves for deadline day to see what opens up. You don't want to be, oh shit, I need this guy, I want this guy, I want this guy, and not have moves because you thought you'd get 2 games of good value out of Dorian Finney-Smith. Shout out to him. Let's move on to the next game. We have got the Orlando Magic. They beat the Hornets pretty comfortably here in this one, 112-100. Markelle Fultz, not high usage at all, only 14%, but 12 points, 14 assists and 2 steals. Diamond blokes up everywhere. The efficiency was great. Really strong stuff from him, while Mohamed Bamba had 12 and 7, but only played the 12 minutes, had some early foul trouble. He is one of the best sources of blocks if you're looking to stream that category in. Aaron Gordon, that's 2 strong games in a row for Azza. 16 and 12 in 38 minutes. Now, he's been shit all season. 150th ranked player over the course of the year. If you wanted to go and add him again, by all means, but I wouldn't be tripping over my dick to go and do it. He just has not been good for, 50 games already this season. How many games has he actually played? I don't have that in front of me. Terry Ross, after a string of absolutely bad performances, had 13 points on only 8 shots with 4 triples. You want points, you want threes. That's what Ross does, but you got to be ready to deal with the fact that he's going to have some terrible shooting nights. While Vooch had 22, 7, and 5, and Evan Fournier had 17 points with very, very little else. Shout out to Jordan Clarkson. For the Hornets, there was no Paul Washington Jr. He continues to deal with his ankle injury, so Miles Bridges continues to thrive at power forward. I think that's his best position. I'd like to see Bridges and Washington play at the 4 and the 5, because ultimately, that's both of their best positions. 16 and 8 for Bridges, 2 threes, 1 steal, 1 block. Shot horribly. 33% on 15 attempts, but the way he's playing at the moment, you got to have him on a 12-team roster. Speaking of shooting horribly, Devontae Graham actually was okay here. 46%, 15 points, 5 assists, but all that most improved all-star talk from the start of the season has very, very, very quickly disappeared from the public discourse. Cody Martin. A guy I talked about at the start of the season, some pretty strong rookie translations coming through, looked good on the court, advanced stats were good, and now he has overtaken Dwayne Bacon, he has overtaken Nick Batum. He played 28 minutes, he had 13 and 8 with 3 steals. He hit all 6 of his shots, so that helped, but he's a real beneficiary from this Washington injury, and in deeper leagues, Martin, I think, can be a rotation guy the rest of the year. Malik Monk shot a little bit better, but the minutes weren't there, 22 minutes, 11, 5, and 4 is all right. He's a 12-team flyer, while Rozier had 18 and 3, a little bit of an empty night. The Baconator Dwayne Bacon started over Marvin Williams, who started in place of Paul Washington last game. Bacon had no points on 4 shots. He really just is not good at all. Sorry, Dwayne. Next game, the New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We went to overtime in this one, and the Knicks get the win, 139-134. The Cavs tanked it down the stretch. Lord Alfred Payton, still under-rostered, had a triple-double. Now, normally the triple-doubles in March is where they marry up for Payton, but he's been really good, 17, 11, and 15. He might get traded. He might get benched. We don't know, but for now, he is a guy that you should have on your roster. Now, is he a player that I would waste a waiver acquisition on with a deadline coming up? Probably would. Julius Randle, 20 and 8 after coming into this game with an injury concern, while Marcus Morris, the Knicks, they want to sign him to a long-term deal in the offseason. Why? What is wrong with this front office? What, Jesus. 26 points for Morris in 36 minutes. Like, strong performance, but over the last 20 games, he's outside the top 115. And this is the sort of thing that I've talked about with him, is that real hot streak to begin the season, it was illusionary. He struggles in a lot of these other areas, and so much was going to fall off. I still don't know if he's going to be a fantasy-relevant player come the playoffs. Good to see Dennis Smith play well. 15 points, 6 assists, 4 steals, but importantly, 20 minutes in this game as he looks to have overtaken Frank Ntilikina a little bit for that backup point guard job. Now, Ntilikina was getting wing minutes, and when RJ Barrett comes back, how that all works is going to be really curious. But if I'm going to shit on the Knicks, and listen, I'm always going to shit on the Knicks, I have to shit on them about Mitch Robinson.
And Mitch Robinson says, I'll take it from here.
If only he was taking it from here. Oh, Mitch Robinson, mate, he's not available in trades. Hands off our Mitch. Can't trade him. But we'll play 28 minutes of knobhead Bobby Portis. We'll get Taj Gibson out there for 13 minutes, and we'll play Mitch 15 minutes. He had 3 fouls. You know how many more that means he had left to give? 3. Play him more minutes. It makes no sense for a bloke that's the face of your franchise and the one of the only 2 young players who's shown any ability to be an NBA rotation guy, let alone a starter, and you keep him on the bench and you play him no minutes. Absolute tomfoolery. for this team. Like, absolute nonsense. If you've got kids and you don't want to hear swearing, cover their ears now. It's absolute fuckwittery from this team. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's happening with Mitch. I am still holding, but this is rough as shit. I don't understand it. Can anyone explain it to me? I don't need Bobby Portis out there. Nobody does. I don't need Taj Gibson. The Knicks don't need these guys. None of this makes sense. Kevin Knox had 12 points in 17 minutes, so that's awesome. For the Cavs, Kevin Love was great. 33, 13, and 6. I don't think he's getting traded. I've said this quite a bit this season. I don't think he's getting dealt. And I think his production can be still pretty good. We see really good numbers. I do think Tristan Thompson's going. Another one of those guys like Marcus Morris that I've said he's not going to be a fantasy relevant guy come the playoffs. He's already trending down. Now he's out with a fake quad injury. Larry Nance started 18, 8, and 6, 42 minutes. He should not be on literally any waiver wire, Nance. And, if I'm going to give shit to people, and I do, and I think most of them are fair criticisms, and the criticisms I've leveled at Colin Sexton have been fair. But if I'm going to do that, I have to say that he's been playing really well. He's been much better. He still has some spaz out moments on offense and defense where he just doesn't seem to know what he's doing and the tunnel vision arrives. But 29 points, 7 assists, 50% shooting. He's been really, really good. He's the 56th ranked player over his last 20 games, so over the last month and a bit. It's really impressive. Shout out to you. Darius Garland, 14 points with 5 assists and 4 triples. I think he's a 12-team league guy. Well, Kevin Porter, who was trending into the 30-minute zone, didn't. Went back to 24, so Chetty Osman could play 38 minutes. That was weird. Still had 12 points, 3 assists, and 2 steals there, did Porter. So I do believe that he is a 12-team league guy at this point. The Golden State Warriors and the Washington Wizards. The Warriors win at 125-117. Alec Burks, 29 minutes, 30 points, 5 triples, 2 steals. Absolutely a 12-team league guy, but absolutely a massive candidate to be traded, as is the little dog Glenn Robinson. Both of these guys are playing really well, and they are both 12-team league players. 22, 6, and 7 for Robinson. They're shooting well. They're doing everything they need to do. Obviously, D'Angelo Russell was out, and this stuff's not going to last when both Russell and then Curry comes back later on. But really strong performances. Same goes for Damo Lee, who had 19 points with 6 assists. He was moving towards a drop guy, and I think he was a drop guy. If you wanted to re-add him, consider it, but is he a priority over a waiver move? No, he is not. Marquise Chris, 13 points in 26 minutes, 5 rebounds and 2 blocks. Hit all 5 of his shots. Is a bit of a cap on his value with the minutes, with the Wizard playing minutes, with Eric Pascal playing some minutes there, who is not a 12-team league guy. Let's be clear about that. Kevon Looney getting 10 minutes as well. Chris does have 12-team league value. Is he a waiver guy? No, let's just wait until the deadline and see what comes out. Well, Jacob Evans started in place of Russell. He was bad with his shooting, 7 points on 1 of 8 shooting, but 1 steal and 3 blocks gave him some back-end value. Not a guy that I'm really massively keen on. If you want a stash sort of option, Jordan Poole could get some value if Birksey and Robinson go. For the Wizards, they are almost healthy again. Jordan McRae is the only one out. We got Flaming Mo Wagner back. And we got Rui Hachimura back. Now, Rui, the big testicle, he had 11 and 8 in his 26 minutes. And in true Hachimura style, he had no threes, no assists, no steals, and no blocks. He is not a good fantasy player. He is not a 12-team league must-add player to me. He is still this season the 163rd ranked player, despite starting every game this year and being someone that everyone seems to love for some God knows reason. He's not a good fantasy player. In a points league, it's a different story. In a category league, I think he's had 4 blocks all year. He gets no assists, steals, blocks. His percentages are okay. They're not fantastic and they're not high volume. He hits no threes. He's an okay scorer, an okay rebounder. He's like Harrison Barnes. But worse? Better? I don't know. I don't know which one's worse. They're both not good for fantasy. With everyone getting healthy, Troy Brown's a clear drop to me in 12-team leagues, only 23 minutes for Brownie. While the tank, Tommy Bryant. 11 and 7, 29 minutes and 2 blocks. And the most encouraging thing here is 29 minutes. Even with Mo Wagner back, he played those 29 while Mahinmi played only 9 minutes. Now, Mahinmi had early foul, so that's a part of it as well. But yeah, we've got to make sure Bryant's on a roster and see what it does. Now, he could go back and play 22 minutes next game if Mahinmi stays out of foul trouble. So we still don't have a complete answer to this question. But Wagner with his 12 minutes, obviously not a 12-team league guy, and Mahinmi with his 9, and then Bryant with his 29. Also, we got 32 minutes out of Bertans, 19, 4, and 5 with 5 triples. And Beal, I can't let him go unnoticed. 43 points with 6 assists and 2 steals. An absolutely huge run from Beal at the moment, who still, amazingly, is only the 19th ranked player over the course of the season. Let's go on to the next game. It is the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. The Celtics win it in the end, 123-115. There was no Kemba Walker and there was no Marcus Smart. We had Javonte Green start the first half. He just was shit. 0 points in 18 minutes. Brad Wanamaker started the second. 16, 3 and 5 with 4 steals. While Kemba and Smart are out, Wanamaker can be like a 14-team league stream guy. Tatum had 28 and 7 with 5 triples. Shout out to him. But that sort of a game, that's a really strong performance there as well. And Gordon Hayward, pretty good game from Gordo as well, 24, 7 and 6. And then we go on to the old hi-fi, Jaylen Brown.
JB, you've done it again.
Shout out to Remeth Henry, I believe is his name. Remeth Henry for suggesting that nickname. The hi-fi Jaylen Brown had 21 and 5 in his 33 minutes with really strong efficiency. Daniel Tice rolled his ankle. It looked pretty bad. He said he was fine, and they said he was available to return. He never did. He came back to the bench, and it swelled up a little bit, so let's just see what happens there. If he does miss time, Enes Kanter's the guy we want to add there. 8 and 9 for Kanter in his 16 minutes. We also had 25 minutes of Grant Williams. I really like Grant long-term. 13 and 6, 1 steal and 2 blocks. That is why I like him. Contributions across all categories. An efficient ability from the field and from the line, but just not enough happening for him this season. For the Hawks, they were without everyone. Alex Len, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Jabari Parker, DeAndre Bembry were all out. So Jeff Teague started next to Trae Young.
My name is Jeff.
18 points, 6 assists, 4 steals. Not an ad. He's not addable. Reddish, Hunter, Bembry, all these guys should be back pretty soon, and we're just not going to get this from Teague. Now, Trae Young played through his ankle problem. Looked like he tweaked it a bit at the end. 34, 3 and 7, while the Baptist Johnny Collins, 22 and 11, 1 steal and 2 blocks. Really beasting at the moment. And my mate, Fanderpants, had 23 points. He hit 5 triples. Kevin Huerter did. Blocked a shot. Should be on 12-team league rosters. Not a lot else happening with this team. We had Evan Turner playing center at moments. We had Damo Jones just the 17 minutes. That bench looked pretty rough. They did well to keep it as close as they did, considering all the players that they had out. A team that didn't keep it close was the Phoenix Suns as they got spanked by the Nets 119-97. DeAndre Ayton was great though, 25 and 17, 5 assists, 2 blocks. Still doesn't get to the line anywhere near enough, but that's still a good game. While Devin Booker, one of his first shit games in a while, 11, 4 and 4 on 32 minutes with 20% shooting. Mikal Bridges, why you roster him is for steals, and he had 4 of them. Fantastic. He blocked 2 shots. He's pretty good at those as well. And when you get 12, 6 and 4 on top of that, he's an absolute no-brainer 12-team league guy. But then there'll be other games where he has 3 points and 3 boards, still with 2 steals. But can you deal with those other things? Whatever else you get on top of the steals from Bridges is a bonus. He can do it. He can score. He can pass. He's a really good player who was dicked around hard by Williams to begin this season. But you don't roster him for overall production. You roster him for steals, and you get the 4 steals, and you get bloody happy. Rubio, he's rough at the moment, man. This ankle is really bothering him. I would not be surprised to see Rubio miss significant time here. 8, 3 and 2 in 19 minutes. Just can't get anything going. And if he misses significant time, he is a drop. I'm still holding him for now. Javon Carter, that was pretty rough. While Ali Okobo had 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists in 28 minutes as Rubio still battles his issues. For the Nets, Caris LeVert. No Kyrie Irving, so they've started him over Garrett Temple. And we got some good stuff going. 29 points, 7 assists, 2 steals. Now, 37% usage, not happening. 50% shooting, it's Caris LeVert, not happening. 50% from 3, not happening. 100% from the line on 7 attempts, not happening. So there's a lot there that just isn't happening. Now, can he stick in the starting lineup? Maybe. Will he play the Suns every night? Absolutely not. So while this is great and it looks fantastic and we all like Caris LeVert, there's a lot of things here that aren't real, that aren't realistically going to be able to continue regularly. You can go on at him, and I don't have a problem with that. And if you want to take one of your waiver moves away to grab LeVert this week, I think that's actually okay. But I'm not sure that this level of production is something to rely on. It was the last day of Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot's second 10-day deal, so he's likely not going to be back with his team. He had 13 points in 25 minutes. Joe Harris had 16, while Dinwiddie struggled. 14 points on 12 shots with 4 assists. Not his best night. The artist formerly known as Taurean Prince hit 3 threes on his way to 15 points with 6 rebounds. Bad night from Jarrett Allen as well. 8 and 8, while DeAndre Jordan had 8, 9 and 5. Jordan is a nice rebounds stream sort of a player. The next one, the Philadelphia 76ers, man, they were really rough in this one. They just cannot do anything on the road. They lose to the Heat 137-106. Embiid started out hot. cooled off at the end. 29 and 12, some really good percentages, while Simmons had 16, 8 and 7. We've seen his production drop off since Embiid has returned. The painter Matisse Thybulle, he had a block, 15 minutes for him. Now, if you want defense, like he still can provide that. I'd have Bridges over him, but I don't think that he is anywhere near a must-roster player. Shake Milton is a nice streamer for 14 to 16 team leagues, while Joshie Richardson's out, 11 points with 4 assists, while Furky from Turkey just hit 2 threes in his 16 minutes. An absolutely dreadful performance from Toby Harris, 6 points with 5 rebounds. Yeah, there it is. 6 points with 5 rebounds in 25 minutes for Toby Harris, while Al Horford just the 6 points in his 22. We also got Prison Mike Scott, with a big game, 17 points, 5 triples in 18 minutes. But if you know Mike Scott, you know you have no ability to rely upon that. For the Heat, it was Jimmy Butler revenge game. Except the first time he played against that team, he was shitful. Anyway, he was great here. 38 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 70% shooting, an excellent performance. Kendrick Nunn, I think they're going easy because of his Achilles. 24 minutes, 9 points. Over his last 20 games, he's a 136th ranked player. I see no reason to consider him a must-hold player. If you want to, because you love him and he's an undrafted rookie and it's so good, all this blah, 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 do it. I just don't see it. Now, the thing that might help him is that Justice Winslow's out for at least another week more. Tyler Hero is now dealing with a foot issue. Myers Leonard's rolled his ankle in this one. That could help Nunn push those minutes, but they're going to be conservative with his playing time, and he hasn't also been good recently, then it's hard to see him as a must-roster guy. The Spur Dunk Robinson had 19 points with 4 triples, while Kelly Olynyk and James Johnson could be adds if Leonard is out, but that is only going to be for those 16-team league formats. The Iron Shoulder, Goran Dragic, had 24 with 6 assists, while Bam Adebayo, 18, 8, and 11. The next game we take a look at, the Detroit Pistons and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies beat them pretty comfortably, 96-82 here in this one. The Pistons were without Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard, of course, Markieff Morris, and Svi Mykhailiuk. So the rotations are 100% batshit wacky. The Crucifix Christian Wood played 34 minutes, and Andre Drummond, the big avocado, played 36 minutes. So they played them together. Wood was great. He had a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
He had 17 points. And we know if he plays 30 minutes, he'll be a 100% must-roster guy. But last game, he played like 13 minutes behind Drummond exclusively. It's really hard to understand this rotation. Sekou Doumbouya was out of the rotation. I've got to send him back to the G League. And now he started 2 games in a row and played 34 minutes and 26 minutes because Markieff was out. Which one of these is real? I'm not adding Sekou for the record. The Shark, Bruce Brown.
Baby shark,
12, 7, and 4. 38 minutes, but guards were out everywhere. He's an interesting stash if Rose gets traded. Reggie Jackson, who I've been saying is not this good, was 1 of 16 for 3 points. Now, he's also not this bad. But again, and people have criticized me for my takes on Reggie Jackson, or why do you hate him? He's actually good. He's not, because I've got years and years and years and years of his production to look at and say that he is not a top 100 fantasy player. It's been pretty consistent that he's not. And he started off his return from injury in that mode of being good. It was going to fall back. The efficiency was going to fall back. He's a low assists, low threes, low steals player who doesn't get to the line all that much, who scores okay. Now, it will help him, of course, if Rose gets dealt and if Drummond gets dealt. And he's fine on a 12-team league roster. But we've got to remember that he is not this unbelievable player that was putting up those big numbers to begin with. The big avocado had 25 and 18, so strong game from Drummond. For the Grizzlies, Valanciunas always does well against Detroit, as does literally almost every center in the league. 26 and 17 with 4 blocks, while Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 14 and 5 and 3 blocks. Ja Morant, 12, 4 and 7, while Josh Jackson in the rotation, and that's killing the wave pool. 12 minutes only for Jackson, so he's not a useful option, but it means that D'Anthony Melton played only 14 minutes. And we love what Melton's done. Over this season, he is the 142nd ranked player in 18 minutes, not a 12-team league guy. His path to upside has been shrunk even further. 15 points for Dylan Brooks, while Tyus Jones had 13 points in 21 minutes. Brandon Clark, and it was a little bit disappointing, while Jay Crowder...
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Yeah, 4 points in 25 minutes for Crowder. I think he's a huge chance to get traded, which I think they would then open up minutes for Josh Jackson to play that role, which is never a great thing if you like good basketball. Next game, we take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves. They go down to the Sacramento Kings, 113-109 in the end. For the Wolves, Townsy had 22 and 10 in 37 minutes, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. He was quite inefficient, especially for his standards, but still an overall pretty good game, while Bob Covington had 15 and 8 with 3 threes and 3 steals. Shabazz Napier, 17, 3 and 7. Now, he probably shouldn't be on any waiver wires, but is he a priority guy that we add with the deadline coming up? Probably not, because I think the Timberwolves, are looking for a point guard, and he could be in a 20-minute role this time next week. Okogie had 12 points, while Jarrett Culver, 3 points in 18 minutes. He had that stretch of about 3 weeks where he was good, and he's been just shit, really, the rest of the time. He is that guy. If he is on your 12-team roster, maybe he comes good at some point. But if a deadline move happens and someone gets opened up,
giggity,
Culver's the guy that's the drop. Now, in between me recording the earlier parts of this podcast and me recording this podcast, we did have a trade discussion come through from Woj, which I'll talk about at the end of this game. Just stay tuned for that one. Wiggins was pretty bad in this one as well, 10, 6, and 5. For the Kings, The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon. He started with Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley out, 35 minutes, only 4 points, but 12 boards, 2 steals, and 5 blocks. He was excellent defensively. He still can play, despite what we saw at the beginning of this season. But of course, Holmes is likely to return for the Kings' next game, which is on Friday. I would not be adding Dedmon. Now, if he gets traded, there could be value, but what team is looking for a 30-minute-a-night guy, apart from his former team? Maybe it is the Hawks that get Dedmon back in that scenario. But he's absolutely a name to watch. Just, I think, for the Kings next game, he'll be back in a 20-minute role at best, with Holmes likely to return. Fox had 31, 3 and 5, while Buddy Hield. I said I was worried about the minutes in him off the bench, 20 minutes only. Now, he had 16 points, the usage was up, but that is 3, I think, of the 7 games he's come off the bench where the minutes have been under 25, and that is a concern. We can't really do anything with it. We can't trade him off for equivalent value. We can't drop him. You're not buying him low because the minutes might stay there. But that's a troubling sign. Bogdan Bogdanovic, 23 points in 31 minutes, probably is a guy that we want to add off a waiver wire, but is still more of a back-end guy. So maybe if he's there, I'd wait these couple of days and see what goes on. While Nemanja Bjelica had 12, 3 and 2, a steal, a block, and 2 triples. And Harrison Barnes, the pencil, Barnesy. Guys, he had 7 assists. That's got to be a career high. That's like 2 months total for Barnes. He also had 14 points, and he was shit until a little hot streak that he had in the third or fourth quarter. Ended up with 14, 5, and 7. And no, this does not mean that you go and add him in any 12-team league. This is an outlier, and it's still not all that good. Harry Giles went from starting to 6 points in 13 minutes off the bench, while Bazemore had 4 and 6 in his 24 minutes. All right, so let's quickly talk about this trade rumor. And this is not a rumor. This is Woj talking about a trade that does appear like it is going to happen. And he's saying that Detroit and Phoenix are discussing a deal for the Duck, Luke Kennard. And Woj is saying a possible package gaining traction is Javon Carter, Ali Yakoba, and a first-round pick for Kennard. I don't understand what the Suns are necessarily doing here. I think Kennard is really good. I also don't understand what the Pistons are doing. It's one of those trades where I go, what the hell is going on? Because the Suns' best player is Devin Booker. And then Woj is saying they imagine Kennard as a 30-minute plus per game floor space to complement Booker, Oubre, and Rubio. So are they just out on Mikal Bridges now? Are they going to start Kennard next to Oubre at the 3 and the 4 and get rid of Šarić? And what happens to Bridges then? They are also talking about the fact that Kennard hasn't played in 22 games with knee tendonitis, which is troubling. And what's Detroit's end game here? What do they look at with Okobo and Carter? They're just looking to get that first-round pick. Kennard's one of their only good young players on this team. I don't understand it from both sides. Getting rid of Okobo and Carter is fine from Phoenix. They don't really mean much. They're not anything exciting. There'd have to be some sort of protection on that pick, you would think, because the Suns aren't in the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs, so that could be a top 10, top 8, top 5 pick. Like, who knows what happens when the lottery goes. But this trade looks like it's closer to happening, and we'll see if anything else comes out in the short term here about it. As for what Kennard would do there, I think it would hurt his value pretty significantly next to Ayton, next to Booker, next to Oubre in that scenario. We know he can hit threes, but he needs that larger usage role and be able to handle the ball to be a top 100 player. But he's not even playing at the moment. What this would do, though, is open up a ton of minutes for the Shark, Bruce Brown, and assuming Rose gets dealt as well, you get some Brown and Mikhailuk minutes. Svi would become an interesting back-end 12-team league guy as well. The other interesting thing here, or maybe it's not interesting, but Jeff Bauer, who's in the front office for the Pistons, was actually the GM with Detroit when they selected Luke Kennard over Donovan Mitchell. And the Suns have a history, especially Bauer, has a history of doing these things. Players that they just know are the guys that they look at and go, oh yeah, well, I know this guy. I picked him once. Let me pick him. It's like Steve Mills and Alfred Payton. It's like they don't do full scouting on these guys and overvalue these players in the past to make their past decisions look better. So I don't know if this trade's going to happen, but this is one of these deals when you hear this sort of stuff come out from Woj and the language that he uses. This is not one of those, these trade details have come out, therefore it's been discussed and rejected. No, this is one that absolutely could happen. And by the time you're listening to this podcast, Luke Kennard could be a member of the Phoenix Suns, although, of course, he is still hurt and we don't know when he's going to be coming back. And I wouldn't look at him as a must-roster 12-team league guy, but it would boost the value of Svi Mykhailiuk. It would boost the value of Bruce Brown next. I don't think Okobo and Carter are coming in and taking a ton of minutes. It also could hasten the departure of Rose and of Reggie Jackson there in Detroit. All right, and the last game of the night now, the Minnesota Timberwolves and not the Minnesota Timberwolves, that was the last game, the San Antonio Spurs and the LA Clippers. The Clippers win in the end 108-105 for San Antonio. LaMarcus Aldridge 27-9 with 2 blocks, a good game from him, while DeRozan had 26-5 with 2 steals. With the guards, it was a mess again. And we see this so often. When Patty Mills gets hot, both Maximum Derrick and DeJounte Murray lose out. 25 minutes for Mills, 18 points, all from 3. And when that happens, we get 23 minutes of Maximum Derrick. We got 25 minutes of DeJounte Murray. Now, granted, Murray was pretty bad. 2 points with 5 rebounds, still a 12-team league guy, while Maximum Derrick had 4, 8, and 6 on some bad shooting, but blocked 2 shots. White is the better fantasy player in equivalent minutes, in my opinion. Getting to those equivalent minutes is the tough ask, and it just doesn't feel like he's ever going to get close to 30 minutes. So to me, he's more of a 14-team league guy, but over his last 20 games, he's the 127th ranked player in only 24 minutes a game. So that would say, yeah, you know what? He can have that 12-team utility. Jakob Poeltl only played 14 minutes, but blocked 3 shots, a great block streamer up there with Mo Bamba.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
As someone, when you're looking for blocks, if Aldridge isn't getting traded, but if he was, Poeltl would be the guy who would be an absolute must-add player. Trey Lyles had 10 points. That's cool. Bryn Forbes had 8 points, and not much else happened for the Clippers. The fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
22, 6, and 7 with 2 blocks, while the Beatle Paul George had 19, 12, and 8 with a couple of trips to the locker room after getting a bloody nose on an elbow from DeMar DeRozan, while Pat Beverley, 12, 4, and 5 with 4 triples. Now, Beverley's a guy who's on a lot of waiver wires. He is someone that I would add. I don't see his value really changing at all at the trade deadline, so I would add him if he is available. Montrezl Harrell, 14 and 3. It's been a little bit rough from Harrell of late. In fact, over the last 20 games, he's the 147th ranked player. Now, I thought he would drop off pretty significantly from last season, but not to this level, and I think he is a decent chance of getting traded. If it's a Zubats 9 and 8 in his 23 minutes, while Landry Shamet can't do anything when George and Leonard are playing 2 points in 28 minutes, and his value, which was okay for a stretch, is no longer okay. Lou Williams had 12 points on 12 shots. He'll be better than that, but he also won't be at that same level that he was, and he is now outside the top 100 over the course of the season. Another situation which it was relatively predictable given the addition of George and Leonard to this squad. Let's have a look now at just some injury news to catch up on. Barea hurt his ankle today. He didn't return. He is maybe in the rotation, maybe not a really big piece. While Tyler Hero and Myers Leonard both had injury issues. Foot issue for Hero, which apparently he's been dealing with for the last 10 days, while Leonard rolled an ankle pretty bad. If both of those guys are out, Derek Jones, James Johnson, and Kelly Olynyk will likely be the beneficiaries. I don't think any of them are going to be 12-team league guys, much like Hero and Leonard aren't. So it just gives some help in those deeper formats with those players like Johnson and Olynyk specifically. Let's move into DFS now. We're going to be looking at FanDuel pricing for the 4 games that we do have coming up here on Tuesday. All right, so the first game we look at, the Bucks and the Pelicans. The Bucks are only 6-point favorites in this one for a team that has won more games by 20-plus points this season than they've had losses. That is a curious line, and the total is absolutely astronomical, 245 points. So if Vegas is expecting a closer game and a high spread, there could be some real big DFS results here. Paddy Connaughton is listed as probable with an ankle problem, while George Hill is out for Milwaukee. At point guard, Bledsoe, 6,300, probably just pushing a little bit too high there for Eric, who's been pretty good lately, but I just think we can do better than spend that on him, while Lonzo's at 6,900.
Giggity.
I'm much more into Lonzo at that price. He's averaging over 35 over his last 5 games. He had 48 in his last contest. He averages 49 against the Bucks. Some of those, of course, with the Lakers. I think all of those with the Lakers. I do still like him, though, at that sort of a salary. At shooting guard, the big ragu, Dante DiVincenzo's at 4,600. Limited upside, but not a bad cash option there, while Drew's at 7,500, looking to bounce back on just a 23-point FanDuel performance last time. Chrissy Middleton at 72 also looks really, really strong as a cash option. Josh the Hitman Hart's at 45, and while he's been playing well and they've been using him a lot more, I'm not totally sure I buy it. I'm also not out on it. I think he can have utilization in this one. Wesley Matthews, Paddy Connaughton, Korver and Redick, no thank you. At small forward, Gianni Antetokounmpo is at 11,500. That looks good to me, while Ingram's at 76, and he's been back on track the last few games with Zion in averaging 39 over his last 3. He looks pretty good as well. Zion himself is at 7,100. Probably just more for tournaments there. He hasn't really given us that big 40-point explosion yet, but you can see that it's coming. While Favors at 55 is one I'd steer clear of. Ilyasova, not going to do it. At center, Brook Lopez had 50 points on the back of 9 blocks last time out for the Bucks. He is priced at 5,800. He is a little bit up and down. We know that with Lopez, so I'd only be considering him as a tournament guy. But centers have been putting up some pretty strong numbers of late up against this Pelicans team, so that at least gives him some level of value. Next up is the Hornets and the Rockets. No total, no spread out for this one. Just at this point, this is a back-to-back for Charlotte. Austin Rivers is considered probable with an injury, while Russell Westbrook is doubtful with a thumb that he hurt last game, while Paul Washington Jr. has missed the last few games for the Hornets. Today, it was the Baconator, Dwayne Bacon, that started in his place, but it gives extra value to Miles Bridges and Cody Zeller and Cody Martin as well. They're the guys who get the biggest boosts there. At point guard, Terry Rozier is at 6,200. I like the matchup here for Rozier. I'm not certain that he's a great price. He is an interesting GPP option, though. While Chris Clemens at minimum salary, would they utilize him? They haven't really broken him out at all of late, even in the games that Westbrook has been out. At shooting guard, Jimmy Harden's at 11.6. Despite the shitfulness of some of his recent performances, he's back to averaging 59 points over the last 3, so that looks good. While Malik Monk's at 46. A little bit disappointing from Monk on Monday, but I do think the minutes are there for him. He's a strong tournament guy. Devontae Graham's at 67. The shooting is just killing every game that he plays pretty much. Cody Martin's an interesting one. 3,600. He dropped 36 points on Monday. He played 28 minutes. There's a lot of value in him if we do hear that Washington is out. He does benefit quite a bit in that scenario. At small forward, Eric Gordon's at 4,900 only for tournaments, while Miles Bridges at 54. Again, if Washington's out, I think that's strong for cash. Otherwise, it's a little bit riskier because he does seem to perform better when he is at power forward versus small forward. While Dan House at 5,100. Actually, I haven't even mentioned the big news. Of course, Clint Capella is out, so Dan House gets a boost there. He's a much better option at power forward as well. And at 51, there is value. Cody Zeller at 4,900. Washington's out. If Washington's out, I like Zeller. He's been in the high 20s versus the mid-20s in minutes in that scenario, and that gives him a 30-point average around that sort of a mark. So I think that would work if we do hear that Washington is sidelined. Bill Hernan-Gomez not going to do it. Well, PJ Tucker's going to play center minutes, but his production has been wanting, to say the very least. The next game up, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are 4.5-point favorites, and the total is 224. We know Damian Lillard is averaging 49 points over his last 6 games. The Blazers are 4-2 during that time. But the Nuggets might be welcoming back the Blue Arrow Jamal Murray. They're going to be without Michael Porter. They're going to be without Mason Plumlee. And they're going to be without Paul Millsap. But Murray could return. If Murray is out, that gives Monty Morris a chance to do what he did last game, where he put up a really, really big game. But Murray could have an interesting impact on this contest overall. At point guard, Murray is at 6,300. I wouldn't want to use him first game back, while Monty Morris at 5,000. That's a significant salary elevation for Morris. He did have 41 last game, but prior to that, he wasn't quite at that level. I don't hate it at 5,000 if Murray is out. I think he could be okay. Lillard is more than okay. He's averaging 71 over the last 5. He's at 10-9 now. Again, just this level of scoring. He's got like a 75% true shooting, averaging 49 and 10. Nobody can do this. Is this the time that we fade him against a defense which is generally pretty good? I have to think it is, because that price is pushing way up into the 56, 57 point value barrier where he needs to get to. Is that too high? I'm not totally against using Lillard here, but I think at some point he's not going to live up to that number. Gaz Harris at 4,000.
Nice, Gary!
Gaz Trent at 3,800.
Nice, Gary!
Not sure if we want to use either of the Gazes here. Harris came off the bench last game and had 6 points. Trent had 8 points in his role off the bench, but I just wanted to play that sound clip twice. Torrey Craig probably get another start. He's at 3,800. Not someone we're super interested in. While Malik Beasley at 38. If Murray is out, I think Beasley's an okay cash guy for a 22 to 24 point performance, but limited value upside-wise. Otherwise, Melo's at 56. He's been struggling a little bit the last couple of games, but that price for Carmelo Anthony is a really good one, and I like his ability here to at least push towards 30, which gives him some value, while Farton Will Barton at 62 also looks like a good cash play. Ariza is as up and down as they come. 4,500 for Trevor. He had 16 in the last game. He's had 30-point games. He's all over the shop. I wouldn't feel great about using him in any format. While Jeremy Grant at 61, really strong floor value with Millsap still sidelined and Porter out in this one. At center, Big Chungus Nikola Jokic is at 10-4. He's absolutely rolling at the moment, averaging 55 in his last 5. Love him as a high-price player, while Hassan Whiteside.
The world.
He's at 9,100. I feel pretty good about what Whiteside is doing. He's giving 50s relatively regularly. Now, he has had some struggles against Jokic in the past, but I do think at 9,100, he is a guy that we should be feeling pretty good about using with how well he's been going. The last game of the night, the Spurs and the Lakers. The Spurs on the LA back-to-back after taking on the Clippers on Monday. The Lakers are 12-point favourites and the total is 229. Both Anthony Davis and Alex Caruso have appeared as probable on the injury report. Rajon Rondo's at 43. He played well last time in a big win. 34 points in 27 minutes. I wouldn't want to rely upon that. While Maximum Derek White. He's at 4,300. Really tough to trust those minutes. DeJounte Murray at 56. His minutes are on the way back up. But yeah, I feel much better about him than White in this scenario, but still not supreme confidence. At shooting guard, there's a whole bunch of guys that I want nothing to do with. Dan Green, Bryn Forbes, Caldwell Pope, Avery Bradley, Lonnie Walker. Really hard to get behind them. But DeMar DeRozan, who is listed as a shooting guard despite having played nearly every minute at small forward, he's at 7,600, and that looks like a pretty good spot to me. LeBron's at 10-4.
LeBron James.
Love it. All about that one. That's a really good price. Rudy Gay at 3,600 is not doing a huge amount at this stage. At power forward, Tone Davis at 10-2 looks good. Aldridge at 69.
Giggity.
Also looks pretty good, although the matchup's not a great one for LaMarcus. Kuzma at 42 looks like a fade, and Trey Lyles is usually not getting it done. Dwight's at 4,400. I'm not into that, nor with JaVale McGee. While Jakob Poeltl's been putting up some big games of late, it is a little bit tough to use him in a matchup, which doesn't look all that positive going up against the Lakers. If we just flip it now to look over at some DraftKings value, I got Davis there, Aldridge, Jokic, Ingram, LeBron, DiVincenzo, Drew, DeJounte, Jeremy Grant, Jimmy Harden, McCollum, Mallow, Yanni, all providing some significant value over on DraftKings. That'll do it for me today, guys. Subscribe Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and give it a 5-star rating if you could on the audio platforms, and on YouTube, just leave a comment down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Kevin Love.